Tonight we have a very limited agenda here, very light agenda. Before we get into our agenda tonight, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our two new planning board members, Mr. Jerry Fischette. And Jerry's really very well known to us by coming before us in the past as a neighborhood activist in the Tuckerville Neighborhood Association, and has been very helpful for us in the past on zoning issues and speaking out and those other issues. So we welcome Jerry at this point in time. On behalf of myself, the other board members in the city of Lowell, Jerry, we wish you very well on your serving for the city of Lowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd also like to welcome Mr. Stephen Genman, who's probably no stranger to the city council chambers, as he sat here before in the past when he's been a dedicated councilor for 2 terms previously. And on behalf of myself and the board members in the city of Lowell, we also welcome him at this point in time. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor for me to sit on the board with all of my esteemed colleagues here. I want to take a minute just to thank the city manager for his appointment and the city council for their confirmation of that appointment, and would like to wish well and extend a thank you to the outgoing members of the board, George Zaharoulis and Mary Burns, and thank them for the service that they provided to the city on this board for many years. And like Jerry, I'm sure I look forward to carrying the baton for a little while and serving with all of you.
Thank you. Moving along tonight, we have no public hearings. So we have a couple of things on the new business and one under old business. On the new business, we have a bond release, which is West Meadow Estates / Dean Drive. The board will discuss the release of the bond money being held for the West Meadow Estates Dean Drive subdivision. I believe in our packet tonight we do have communication from the engineers department in regards to monies being paid. James, anything you want to comment on that from the Division of Planning and Development?
I guess just to summarize, Mr. Chairman, basically, I believe it was about 5-6 months ago that the planning board voted to release some of the funds that were being held for this project. The funds that are still being held is in the amount of $16,000 just to make sure that the developer is completing the work. And as you can tell from I have spoken with both Joe Cady, and he sent me an email that you have in your packet just to confirm that they have completed all of their work up there to the city standards. They have provided as-built plans to the city engineers department, which is a requirement of all projects in the city, and they are all set, and we're ready to basically release the remaining number of the funds, and it requires a planning board approval.
Okay.
If there's any questions, I can. Sorry, I was just mentioning. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. If there's any questions, I can answer them now.
Any of the board members have any questions or concerns at this time?
I have one question.
Sure.
On
Okay,
the West Meadow Estates Dean Drive bond worksheet. Shows some outstanding items under the column titled remaining quantity.
Correct. That was
That's in conflict with what?
Sorry. That is essentially what was outstanding the last time the board voted to basically bring the bond funds down to the $16,000 limit. They have since completed all of these outstanding items. Okay. This is what the engineer's office uses to calculate all of their what needs to be completed on site. And I just wanted to show that to the board. Right now, there is $16,000 left in the bond, essentially. And the worksheet is from the previous time that the board voted to basically release the amount of funds down to the $16,000 amount. They have completed all of this work, and basically we're ready to release the remaining funds.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I see in the letter it indicates that the developer is finished with Dean Drive, is submitted as-built and roadway acceptance plan, and all they're waiting for is to petition the city council to accept the roadway. Does anything have to be held for that last bit of business? I notice in the worksheet there is legal description and deed for road acceptance, $1,000 remaining balance. Does anything have to be held for that? Do you know?
No. Basically, what happens with the road acceptance is we get the word that the work is completed from the engineer's office, and we release whatever remaining funds are there, and then we actually submit a petition. The Division of Planning and Development actually submits a petition to the City Council to just vote on the acceptance of the
developer needs to do.
No, everything that the developer would need to do has been completed, and the engineer's office is checked to make sure that that's completed. Once we get the word from in DPD that the roadway is ready to be accepted by the city, we just need to put the petition forward to the City Council, and we usually put them together in a lump sum of streets. there's usually maybe 10 streets on one petition. We tend to save them up so that we're not doing it every single meeting or.
That's fine, thank you.
So,
Any other questions or concerns? No? Before at this point in time, the board want to make a motion, consider a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to release the bond money on this development.
Motion's been made.
I'll second the motion.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. The vote carries 5-0 in favor. Moving along, the next matter will be lot release, Newbridge Estates, 193 Acropolis Road. The board will discuss the final lot release for all lots located in Newbridge Estate, Phase 4 subdivision project. James, I know we spoke briefly on this, and this was one lot release, and I know after we spoke, you indicated that there's, I guess a couple up there that will be coming forward to be released in the future that by oversight haven't been released?
well, to be honest, we're not positive on our end. We think there are probably more than just this one. We think it was just an administrative oversight that during the releasing of the funds and of the bonds and everything that was happening with this development, there may be others that haven't been released, although they should be released. Essentially what happened in this case was Newbridge Estates, from my understanding, was a development that was approved back in 1991.
That came
was
in basically-
started at that
yeah.
time. During that time, it was also during the crash of the real estate market in the early 90s, whereby the developer actually walked away from the project. The city took it over, sent it out for bid. A new developer came on board, and they have since completed all the work to our standards. That the roadways have been used, have been essentially everything that happens with a roadway has been accepted by the city. I know a number of properties up there, I'm sure, have changed hands. All this work has been completed, I believe. From our records, the final lots that were being held were released, I believe, back in 1998. And I think I included a transmittal showing Ann Barton's signature from that time, 95 actually, which released a number of lots, and essentially we're just trying to clean up this subdivision and just put a lot release out there for all remaining lots. It's a simple wording of the lot release that if the board so chooses, they can decide to vote to just release any remaining lot that's possibly under this covenant or this.
'Cause when this came in, I believe, my memory serves me, it came in 4 phases at least, if not 5, 4 or 5. I know this one here is phase 4. Came in the first one, then the second one, the third, and the fourth, and as you said, the work had started, the developers stopped it, we had the bond posted, and then we had, actually it was the Soines brothers who came forward and did a heck of a job and helped the city out big time. We had to give them a lot of credit. They went up there, worked due diligent. They worked on a lot of the neighborhoods. I'm sure Jerry's familiar with this very clearly as a neighborhood activist. I'm sure he's heard a lot of concerns from neighbors, and it was a mess for a long period of time. And I got to say, once the Soines brothers got involved in the project, it almost started cleaning up overnight, I can almost say. All the issues, they sat down, they met with the neighbors, they sat with the people, they addressed the main concerns, the flooding of the road, the washing out the road, the washing out the bales of hay, the crushed stone, and that was being dumped in people's backyard that didn't belong there, where they were supposed to dredge, they didn't dredge, and I gave them credit. They came in, and it was a big job to take on. They took it on, and as a result, they did an excellent job. And I know a lot of the people up there had to be patient with the people up there. They were patient. They were well more than patient, and they hung in. And once we got the Soines brothers involved, they did a heck of a job, and they really did a good job. I know this started back when Arthur Hammond was the chairman of this board, and I know he was up there on many occasions himself with former planning board member George Zaroulis, and they were walking through the road, and 6, 8 inches of water where it said it was fine, and bales of hay were just being washed away from the road. So obviously, I'm in favor of anything we can to help up there, to help release any of the lots. I know it's been completed, it's been fixed, and it's been for a long period of time. I don't know if any of the board members have any comments they'd like to make in regards to this matter.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just expand on what you mentioned. Sure. We actually toured areas of Pawtucketville, and James was along on that tour, and we went through this development and using this as an example of desirable subdivision development in the neighborhood. So we certainly commend the contractor that went in there and really, as you said, took a very unfortunate situation for the residents that were up there and really made it right, and I think did right by the city and the residents up in that area.
Yeah, I think, when this came down, we took another real hard look at our bond agreements, our tri-party bond agreements. We get into what they had to post. We want to be a lot more strict about it, but fortunately, we're governed by Chapter 40, by the Mass General laws, which give them 3 or 4 different options, and they're allowed to use those, because we really want to try to crack down on this to try to prevent this from happening in the future. So I know a lot of times you never have to come forward on a bond release or any of those natures, but luckily, in this case, we did have the bond in place to make the project work. If we didn't have it, it really would have been a disgrace, so I welcome any releases up there. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Forgive my ignorance, but Jim, would you mind explaining exactly what it means to have a lot release? What is this, what is the impact of the vote?
In general, what happens when, I'll try to summarize it in a short term. In general, what happens when a new subdivision comes in front of the planning board is that the developer will be required to put up in a number of different types of funds. It can be a passbook savings account, it can be a bond, it can be a lien of, line of credit on the development. Basically, to put up funds that the city can access should that developer leave the project for some other reason, therefore the cost of the project, of completing a public, soon-to-be public roadway, a soon-to-be subdivision where citizens of a community will be living, the city won't have to pay for that project. It'll be ultimately the developer that will pay for it. What happens is, depending on the size of the development, you can have different phases of the release of those funds. So, for example, if a subdivision had 10 houses, and just for simplicity's sake, let's say it cost, the city determined that it would cost $100,000 to complete whatever remaining work was on that subdivision, we can work out an agreement whereby the city will allow the developer to sell 2 of the houses, and we will release, therefore, 20% of the funds that are being held to give that developer a little bit more money so that they can complete the rest of the project. And it's sort of a checks and balances system, and also a give and take system whereby the city allows the developer to gain access to some of its funds it's putting up to complete the project, and also to sell some of the lots that are part of the project to pay for the rest of the project. There are obviously different nuances that go along with the lot release system. Part of the officializing of it is that the planning board has to accept the release of those lots. They have to vote to say, okay, yes, we accept that. So we accept the release of X amount of funds or these 5 lots where you can sell them, and you can do you can do all sorts of combinations of the two. One example that we just had tonight is the Dean Drive example, whereby through subsequent votes from the planning board, the developer only had the remaining $16,000 in funds, which was based on what the city determined to be the cost to complete that project at that time. So the original bond funding could have been $200,000, but through the completion of the project, the developer completed certain aspects of it. The city said, okay, yes, you have completed these to our satisfaction, therefore we'll let you take out an extra $100,000 from that bond, and so forth. So it's a way to sum it up, it's a way for the city to ensure that we don't get stuck with the cost of a development by requiring a developer to put up those funds in some form of manner prior to the start of construction or during the construction itself.
And Steve, what happens is that's recorded at the registry. So when someone goes to do the title search, they find out that this release hasn't been done yet. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when someone goes to do a purchase and sale, they find that, and then they come in and ask for that release. So mm-hmm. A lot of times people come in the last hour and say, gee, we got closing to go to, and they find out that this isn't released, and now
Sure.
They don't have clear title. And so a lot of them, unfortunately, some lawyers pass with them, which they shouldn't do. And then they clear them up later. But obviously, they should try to clear them up, and usually sometimes they sit there, but sometimes things take a while before they moved on, and people think they're fine, and then they do come up piecemeal. And one thing, whenever they do put a bond release up, what we do is we always get the estimate from the city engineer what it'll cost, and we always want it to be more than what it would be to finish the project. Because we know that over time, the prices are gonna go up. And also developers will say, well, gee, if it only costs me 20 to finish it, my bond's only 20, if I walk away now, I can start working on another job, and I don't have to put the 20 up, and so be it, let me put my money somewhere else and I'll start somewhere else. So what we used to do, and what previous chairman here, especially in the past, would ask us 3 times the amount. So then we tried to get, then the law was saying, well, you're being kind of unreasonable. So we tried to be at least almost double, and then we could release in partial, because really, over a period of time, you look at now, I mean, look at Lowell here talking about building this garage with the price of granite, how much it's gone up in 6 months. And you look at it now, things aren't that unrealistic when the prices go up. So whenever you do see an estimated bond for us in the future from the engineer, they will give it to us, but they will give it a lot higher than what the builder should do it, so he has incentive to finish the job. And obviously, it also has incentive for the people who live around that neighborhood who want it done, so they don't have the noise pollution, the trucks coming and go, get it done, get it over with, and get, peace and harmony back into the neighborhood. So that's why a lot of times we want the bond figure higher, and that way sometimes on a big project, if they do phases, they release it in portions so they can put the money back into the next phase. So therefore, you'll see it more, like on this one, we had phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. This was around for so long, we started calling it Old Bridge Estate. They came in as New Bridge. I know Jerry said that term for me a few times, and he's like, yeah, I got to that point. Mr. Linehan did go from New Bridge until Old Bridge after a period of time, but luckily, we've crossed that bridge.
Yes, I can remember lots of discussion on this in this chamber about New Bridge Estates years ago.
Yeah, it came before you people, I recall.
Yes. So in this case, the details about the site plan and that sort of thing, has that all been approved already?
Yeah, that means we've done everything, we've done the site plan, everything's been approved. As a matter of fact, that they did the work, and now they're just looking for that release. And then they can just, they'll sign off at the registry of deeds, and the title's clean.
Great.
So what James had indicated was, there might be other ones that fell in under this category that we haven't seen, that might be coming up in the future, but James and I have discussed this, and was saying that everything out there has been 100% completed, and it's been so for a long period of time. So we say, if anything else has to be done, we have no problem approving anything, because everything's been done, it's been complete, it's just a matter of untidy business being cleaned up.
Great, thank you.
Correct, James, basically?
Yeah, correct. Essentially,
That's why we said there might be others out there that we're not
Correct.
aware of. So we
Essentially-
could see them on a case-by-case basis, or they could
Right.
come back in.
Because this subdivision went through so many different layers, it was approved originally back in 1991. That approval is what was the original approval, where the board looked at the subdivision, made sure that it was up to the standards of the city, went through the formal review within the city departments. I'm sure the city engineer's office looked at it, the wastewater department. They looked at the site plan, they looked at all of the landscaping issues, I'm sure. And essentially what we're seeing now is just the final release of the lots that are held under the covenant for the completion of that original subdivision approval. Occasionally in this case especially, because it was such a weird process that the subdivision went through, because the developer went bankrupt, and because the city had to go through a process whereby they had to put it out for a bid process to have a developer complete it. Some of these administrative catches happen sometimes, and it's occasional. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes we just have to look back at the file, make sure we aren't holding funds on this project. We make sure there aren't any outstanding conditions of approval that haven't been met yet, or make sure that there isn't any outstanding just completion projects that need to happen. And typically it's just an administrative oversight that there's one lawyer that happened to find in one of the agreements that it's filed at the registry of deeds that, all right, well, my exact lot isn't mentioned in that, we should probably clean that up, which is why it's always safe if we know that the subdivision is completed, we can always just say, okay, release of all remaining lots, just to sort of catch all the remaining lots that are part of that subdivision. To quickly add to what the chairman was saying about the funds that are being put up, typically the engineer's office overestimates It can be anywhere from 20 to 50% depending on the project. And we always make sure that there's a caveat in the agreement that we have with the developer that should they walk away, or should a project not completed for a certain time, or should supplies go up to a level that's above what we're holding and that developer walks away, we can charge them above and beyond the funds that are being held in the bond. So we always make sure that there's a line in there that says we can take the funds to complete the project, and we can charge the developer anything above and beyond that cost. That way we can catch anything that, we like to have the funds there because that's a secure amount of money. And it's not secure if you try to chase down the developer how much you're going to get from them, but we try to make sure that we have all catches in order. We have a pretty skilled team of any sort of covenant or bond that comes into our office. I always make sure I run it by the law department, just to make sure that everything's in there that we want in there, and before we sign anything. In this case, I did have Patty Talty, our assistant city solicitor, look at the requests from the law office, who's representing I imagine it's the seller of 193 Acropolis, and she seemed to be okay with it. So if there's any more questions, I can answer them outside the office as well if you have any questions.
When we're holding the money, they seem to like to get the work done quicker. So it's definitely a tool to help
That's
them.
the incentive.
Yeah. Any other questions on New Bridge Estates at Acropolis Road? Any other questions? No? Entertain a motion at this point in time?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the request to release the lots.
Okay, just a discussion. James, can we consider release them all at this time?
Sorry?
Do you want us to request to release them all at this time? You want to do one by one case basis? Are you confident that we have everything covered, right?
If the board is comfortable, I'd suggest doing them all at this time. That way we don't have to come, they
Mr.
don't have
Shea,
to
do you have
come
any
back.
objection to amending your motion to release all the lots on New Bridge Estate Phase 4? Or all of them, right? Just give me phase 4.
Right, if you want
I mean,
to,
this
you
is
can
phase 4.
mention all the remaining lots that are part of New Bridge
Just a
Estates Phase
discussion.
4,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend that and
Okay.
to include all the...
The motion is amended that
lots.
we release all the lots on New Bridge Estates. Motion's been amended. Anyone want to second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes. Motion carries 5-0 in favor. Moving along on the old business, we have an update and administrative adjustment. 975 Varnum Avenue, Duville Senior Care. The board will discuss a proposed minor change to the access drive for the development project at the Duville Manor Senior Care Site located at 975 Varnum Ave. The board approved this project on June 5, 2006. We do have a current plan in the packet. James, is anybody coming from Duville, or you just want to go over this for us?
No, I mentioned that, I said that they didn't have to come out for
Okay.
this change. Essentially what they're proposing is to shift the location of their access drive, which is located the closest to Kelly Circle, which was a question of conflict at the public hearing for this project. They're going to shift it roughly 20 to 28 feet further away from the Kelly Circle entrance, which is actually something that the department and I believe the public and I think the board was encouraging them to do. However, funds on their part wasn't allowing them to do. Just for some background information for the board, what's happened since that time is the project that was in front of the board previously is actually a HUD-funded project, meaning that's federal funds that are going into the project to construct the housing that's going to be added to the Duville Senior Care site. The funds for this access road location is actually coming from the Duville Manor themselves. They decided that, you know what, if our site is going to be disrupted, we might as well do this relocation. The road hasn't been really upgraded since it was originally put in back in, I believe it was the 60s is what I heard from Duville themselves. It may even be earlier than that. And they figured, okay, at this point, we want to do this anyway for safety reasons. It'll allow us to do a more prominent entrance to our site. And it's something that the city wants, and if our site's already going to be disrupted, we might as well do it all right now. So Duville Senior Care themselves are actually funding this portion of the project. Just to note, if If Duville Senior Care decided to do this 2 years from now, for example, after this project, after the HUD project went through, it would have been a very simple, they would have gone and probably pulled a building permit. It wouldn't necessarily have required a planning board approval. But they're trying to tack it on to this project, so therefore I wanted to make sure that the board was okay with this and to make sure that it had its proper approval. So it's essentially up for the board just for an administrative adjustment. You can, if you would vote to approve the administrative adjustment, it's
Thank you, James.
just to make it an official.
I know, basically, when this came in for the public hearing, we opened the public hearing open, and no one spoke in opposition to this at all. If my memory serves me correctly, I think the neighborhood had a little concern just about relocating the road. I believe Attorney Flood, representing Duval at the time, said he would do his best to accommodate them. We had a couple of other minor questions. Mr. Flood answered all those, because we indicated how big the property was. There's plenty of parking on site. There's plenty of traffic flow going in. There was a question, I think, that I proposed about opening up the access road further down on that street, and then they had some answers why they really didn't want to open it up there. They wanted to leave it there. I think they were trying to accommodate different other neighbors from lights of cars coming in or whichever. And I think they said they would pull it over. I guess the only confusing was that a lot of times people did pull in there, did pull into Kelly Circle. I know it was close because Kelly Circle we just approved only a couple of years ago. I think that was the only major concern. So obviously with this being moved over a little bit, I think it's helpful, and I think it will improve the project. These are the only main comments I have this time. Anybody else at this time make comments or anything?
If I may add briefly, Mr. Chairman, one thing that they are trying to do is they're trying to line up as best as they can, and they're trying to work within there's some telephone poles out there that they have to work between. As best they can, they're trying to line up with, is it East Ave or East Ave, which is across the street, so that therefore taking care of some of the glare on the house that's there. There will be a little bit on that one house, however, they've spoken with that neighbor, and they are actually they're making the situation better because they're lining up as much as they can without having to move a telephone pole, and without having move it to the other side of the telephone pole, which would be too costly for them to do. And I just wanted to make that a point of
Rich, you have any questions or concerns?
I have a couple of observations. I think since our original concern was the convergence of this new entryway and Kelly Circle, they've actually moved it away from Kelly Circle. So in my estimation, it looks like an improvement from
I agree.
What they had before. So I'm definitely in favor of this. As I recall, the entrance to the new driveway was going to have some kind of a stone wall or something to distinguish it physically from Kelly Drive or Kelly Circle.
Yeah, I don't
There was something there.
Yeah, some fence or signage up there.
Yeah, and as long as that's still part of it, I
believe it would
think
be.
it's a
Yeah.
I think it's
I
a
think if he was
better
going to eliminate
situation.
that, he'd have to come in and request that.
Request that, so that's still part of it. Yeah,
I believe so.
I think it's a better
Yeah,
arrangement.
Mr. Chairman, I can comment on that. We are working with them on the final landscaping plan for the entrance to that site, and we are trying to, Duville wants to make it some form of a rock wall feature type of thing. One thing we need to consider is sight lines and driving in and out of there. Then they also want signage up there, and we'd really like to incorporate the signage into the wall. And we have Diane Trad, our talented landscape designer, working on that with them. Currently, I mean, they're still working out the details of what they want to see there, and then they'll bring it to us internally, and we'll work with them on the details of what, from the city perspective, we want to see up there as well.
Do you have any questions or concerns?
No, I had nothing.
Steve, no?
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Sure.
and I know this will require a vote, I do want to state that I am on the board of Breer Gardens, which is a facility that's being serviced back here, so I certainly would think it'd be best not to vote, but if I could be permitted to just comment.
Absolutely.
Because I did speak before this board regarding this project in favor of it on behalf of the Pawtuckaville Citizens Council, but the one concern we had was the proximity of the drive. And I just would like to commend the administration of Duville Senior Care because, as you know, the approval did not require them to do this. And I know when they really took a look at it, working with the Department of Planning and Development, I think they came to an agreement that you know, the concerns that the neighborhood had were valid, and that I think in talking with DPD, it was clear that this was the best way to go, and I commend them because they're using their own funds, and this is a project that everybody supported, and clearly if they did not want to do this, I think this would have still gone forward with just trying to dress up that entrance, but I think they're doing the right thing here, and I just want to commend them for that.
Thank you. Steve, no comment? No? Okay. Joe? No. Okay. At this point in time, entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept the minor change that has been described to us.
Motion's been made. Anyone want to second that motion? No, Joe, you...
I'll second it.
Steve, second the motion. Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes yes. Any...
I'm going to abstain, Mr. Chairman, as a
Okay.
member of the Board of Duville. Thank you.
Okay. And Jerry, you abstained too? Okay. So the vote carries 3-0 with 2 abstentions. Okay, thank you very much. Moving along, in our packet, we have other business, notices from abutting towns. Anybody have any concerns about any of the things in our packet about what's going on with any of the cities and towns?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to place these on file.
Okay, motion been made.
I'll second.
And second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes, motion carries 5-0. At this point in time, we have an A&R report, which stands for approval not required. These are submitted to us from the Division of Planning and Development. These are lots that are entitled to, by operation of law, to get divided, and they don't have to come before us for an approval. However, the planning department does update us to let us know as planning officers what's going on in the neighborhoods. So therefore, we do have a list of those in our packet. Those were given to us this evening. Anybody have any questions on the A&R report? Hearing none, we'll place it on file in the packet.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Just on the A&R report, you
Sure.
say that those would come before us again in the future? Is that?
No, basically what these are is, we have no say on these. These basically are house lots that have, they meet all the criteria. They have, what they have, the street requirement, and what they're entitled to an A&R lot, which is approval not required under the subdivision control law in chapter 40. So therefore, they apply before the Division of Planning and Development, and they sign off on them. So we have no say in the matter on these. These get approved by right. So what they do is they give us a notice to let us know that these are being done.
If I may try to summarize as well, Mr. Chairman. Essentially, these are, under the subdivision control laws, there's a number of situations whereby one lot or a number of lots can be subdivided into more than just that one lot. It can range from all the houses, there's structures on the lot that existed prior to the Zoning Act of 1960, therefore they're grandfathered for certain reasons, to the lot that's in question that's going to be subdivided from the main lot, has the legal required frontage, lot area, essentially frontage and lot area on a public road, right of way, an existing public way. If there's, for any reason, if there's any requirement to construct a roadway, that would require an actual subdivision approval in front of the planning board, thereby bringing that in front of the board for a public hearing. What this list is all those lots that are being subdivided in the city that are allowed by right, by state law. Therefore, it's very hard, and as long as the plans that are presented to the department and to the city show all the pertinent information and show the information to the rights of the statutes that are in place by the state, we basically have to sign off on them as an administrative approval, essentially saying, yes, these plans are subject to the A&R rules, meaning the city, you're allowed to do this by right. It's more of a administrative approval process because that new plan does need to be filed at the Registry of Deeds, therefore it does need a signature from the city. And that's why it's more of an administrative approval, and I provide a report to the board so that you know that, yes, these were into the department, and I sign them on the behalf of the city.
So no vote required by us?
No,
It's just
basically,
a-
no. So, what, you
Just a
know, we always
notification.
talk about the A&R, and basically just stands for approval, not required. We've had discussion on those in the past, and they say, you know, why do you allow this? And we say, but it's given to them by right. If they have that piece of property, meet all the criteria, have the frontage on the public way, have the side yard and all that, then they're entitled to it. So basically, what we've done is, at one point in the past, they used to bring them before us, and we would go over them. Then we get to another point over in the past history is that if the planning and development staff wasn't comfortable with them, they'd come in and get our voice on it. And other times where they disapproval and they know it's clear outright, then they sign off on it because we have no say in the matter to approve it or deny it. There's been one or two where it was questionable whether it was an A&R, so then they, when in doubt, the planning and development will bring it before us and put us on the spot and let us make the determination. But basically, when they meet their criteria, if it's pretty clear for them that they meet all the criteria, and the main thing, they have to have their frontage on that street and have the lot requirements and all that. If it meets all the requirement, then they can sign off by right. I think we had one that there was a question on, and the only reason because they brought it forward because it was also going most recently up on First Street, I believe, if I remember correctly, is because they're going for the Board of Appeals for something else.
Yeah.
So we brought that
correct.
in the same time. He goes, you have it as an A&R, but you also have in your packet tonight to recommend for the zoning board of appeals, so I figured I'd give them to you both at the same time. So we had more the history of them. So we had no say in the A&R, but we did have a recommendation for the zoning board of appeals, because now they want to change something on the A&R. So when they say that A&R, it's approval not required, we have no say in the matter. But they do give it to us as a courtesy, so it's nice to say, like, somebody would say, you know, why is this happening could happen in your neighborhood? And you say, it didn't come in front of me, I don't know. And you sit there as a planning board member and say, I don't know anything about it. So we like to get a little update to find out what's going on in our neighborhood, at least in the part of the city. So we have the Division of Plan and Development give them to us, so we do see them from time to time. They don't do them each month. They try to do them like when a group at a time come in together, then they bring them forward to us.
Correct.
So these are usually just notifications to us per se, which doesn't require a vote because doesn't matter, even if we said no or yes, these have all been signed off on and all we've done anyways. But we couldn't change it because we don't have the authority to stop it. Doesn't require a vote from this board. Okay, moving along, we have general correspondences. Anybody have any other correspondences? Jim, I see you have something about the Lowell Downtown Neighborhood Association?
Yes, that was, Mr. Chairman, that was just sent to me today. They just want to get the word out that they're having a meeting on October 23rd. I will actually be there with other members of the Division of Planning and Development.
The Revolving Museum, okay.
And there'll also be, it's at the Revolving Museum at 7 o'clock on October 23rd, and I mentioned to them that I would get the word out for them a little bit. As I get more and more of these, I'll definitely distribute them to the board, and if I get any other newsletters from various neighborhood groups, I like to keep the board informed as to what's happening, so I try to make sure that they have what I get as correspondence from the different neighborhood groups. If there's any questions on that, you can ask me or ask them.
Anybody have any
themselves.
questions in regards to, general correspondence? No? Okay. Moving along, we have what's known as the Zoning Board of Appeals Public Hearings postings. These are matters that will be a public hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals. They will be held on public hearing on October 23rd, 2006. These matters come to us for recommendation only to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The first matter is Omnipoint Communications, looking for a special permit, telecommunications. This is in a suburban mixed use. Petition to allow installation of a wireless telecommunication facility and related equipment. We have a copy in our packet. This is of the site and where it's going on. 527 Pawtucket Street. They're looking to put it in there on that new complex over there. We have the materials in the packet, talks about the height of the poles they're putting in there. It's gonna be, there's one pipe that extends less than 10 feet, then we have another one going up 101 feet on top of the, what it looks like the condominium association over there. What's the name of it? It's, Grandview, that's what I'm looking for, yeah. Yeah, they want to put the telecommunication on top of the new Granville complex over there on Pawtucket Street. They have a picture in the packet of the development of the project now, that's underway, which would be what, the old Spear House, right?
Yeah.
Yep, the old Spear House, that's right. Yep, there's a picture in there, pretty high as it stands now, so this will be on top.
Right.
Talks about the colors is gonna be, some are gonna be the same, and how tall they'll be on top of that. And then they have a copy of the code and section, what's required by our regulations, and as indicated, this goes before the zoning board of appeal. Any board members have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'm very familiar with this project, as I suppose we all are. It's at the end of my street, so I get the opportunity to see it quite often. And I've had an opportunity to view some of the condominiums they're building in there, and they're coming along quite quickly. What they're looking to do here is to add 3 antennas for the wireless communications, 2 of which they want to stick in what they call the stealth pipe, and I think that's the latest technology. Rather than having the antennas on the top of the building, they tried to hide them in a facility that hopefully blends in with the building itself, so they use this stealth pipe. The 3rd antenna, it looks like, will be mounted on the side of the building, but will be painted to match the existing color of the building. I think this is similar, if not the same, to what we approved on the old hospital, that they put inside the stealth pipe, and then the one that they put on the side is painted to blend in with the facade of the building. What they've given us is a photo simulated view, which shows what that will look like once the pipe is installed, so you can get some sort of an idea as to what it is you're approving. So I think they make their best attempt to try and get the antenna to blend in with the surrounding, make it part of the building, and not make it stick out like a sore thumb.
Thank you. Rich, any comments, concerns?
No, I have no comments.
Okay. Jerry, anything you want to say? Any comments or concerns on Jerry?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah, I just had a procedural question.
Sure.
These are notices going to the ZBA.
Right.
So they come before us first for
Recommending purposes.
Just for recommendation.
recommendations, so we could choose not to recommend?
Excuse me?
We could choose not to recommend it?
Basically, a lot of times what we do is either recommend in favor, recommend denial, or, and if we do denial, we usually try to state our reasons why. So when it goes to ZBA, they understand why. Or sometimes we recommend the denial with certain comments.
I see.
So basically,
So we're
procedurally wise, under the guidelines, they have a right to come here as a recommendation body first before it goes to ZBA. Board of Appeals, yep.
Just to briefly note on top of that, Mr. Chairman, these recommendations are not binding for the Zoning Board of Appeals. I just want that to be also out there. It's just a recommendation from the Planning Board. The Zoning Board of Appeals can take into consideration the Planning Board's vote, however, they don't have to. And I just wanted to make that clear for the board as well.
If they like our recommendations, they might mention it. If they don't like them, they might not mention it.
There you go.
So-
I get the picture.
So, I mean, but yeah, so by the way it's set up, that we do a recommending body here, sort of like on zoning change, we recommend to the council, and it's only recommending, we can only recommend, and we have no say on anything else besides the zone to be changed or not. But it does have recommending body first, so that's the purpose of the zoning board of appeals advertisements here. So they are a public hearing, and they will be held on the 23rd here in the city council chambers on the 6:30 that night. So basically, we recommend, and like I say, it's non-binding, so it just comes before us as a procedure that we have in our zoning, that we get a recommendation on these first. Any other questions? No? No. At this point in time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll recommend that we recommend positively to the
Okay.
Zoning Board of Appeals.
There's been a-
Seems like an appropriate place to put a cell phone tower, and maybe we'll all get better coverage in the city as a result.
Thank you. Motion's been made,
I'll second that.
and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, chair votes yes. Vote carries 5-0. Moving along, we have one other matter on the zoning board of appeals. We have a Stephen McGuire for a special permit. This is a traditional mixed use petition to allow the construction of a second single-family dwelling on the same lot. This matter did come before this planning board during the summer months when he wanted to make a duplex on that lot. At that point in time, I know this vote of the board here was 4-0 against. And then it went before the, that was different criteria, because that was before us here on a public hearing. We did have quite a bit of input from the neighbors who came in and spoke that night. I do recall it was a very good discussion, and I know at the conclusion of the public hearing, we voted 4-0 in opposition. So now he's coming back for a special permit to put 2 single-family homes on the same lot. So he does have a picture in the diagram as to how he proposes to put the second house on that lot.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just quickly clarify just what happened with the zoning of this. Not the actual TMU district, but what happened in the process for why it's in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals now. Under zoning, it was in front of the Planning Board for a neighborhood character special permit, which requires any lot with an existing unit that is proposing to construct 2 or more units on that lot to come in front of the Planning Board for a special permit and site plan approval. As you mentioned, they were denied, the planning board denied that project back in June, I believe, is when it was in front of the board. Now it is in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals because a single-family house that is in this zoning district, the TMU zoning district, requires a Zoning Board of Appeals special permit. The neighborhood character, I believe, is for 2 or more new units on that lot, which is why a single family, which is only 1 new unit on that lot, does not trigger the planning board approval review, and that's why it's in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals now for a special permit. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So this is a lot size of 8,200 square feet, 8,255, is that correct? And there's an existing 2-story house there,
Yes.
and they're looking, this developer's looking to put a second single-family home.
Right.
on
Well, it
that
says
same-
there the proposed structure. That's why he wants to put the additional
Right, on
second
the same
family.
undersized lot.
Right. So I guess under the requirement, he can do it by, he has the right to petition under special permit. So that's why he'll have a special permit hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals.
But he would be undersized to put 2 dwellings on this lot.
Right.
8,200 square feet, I don't believe so, no. It's TMU district, which I believe requires,
4,500?
no.
He has
Mr.
4,
4,500 per single family.
For a single family, but this is going to be, this is considered that's the minimum lot size. The lot area per dwelling unit requirement in this district is 2,500 square feet. So there, for 2 units on this lot, they would be required to have 5,000 square feet of lot area. If it was well, they would be required to have 6,000 actually, because other residential dwelling units requires a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet, which they have. In theory, they could fit upwards of 3 or 4 unit, well, actually just 3 units on that lot. Under the lot area per dwelling unit allowance in this district. So therefore, the 2 units on this lot, which only requires 5,000 square feet, they're well within that threshold. So it's not an undersized lot for this district.
All right, so he won't need a variance, he'll just need the special permit that he's requesting
Correct.
from the
It's just
Board
the
of
special
Appeals.
permit for the single family.
Mr. Chairman, without the benefit of, obviously, a public hearing or really, I'm just curious where this board rejected the proposal for a traditional 2-family, multi-family. Do you recall what the predominant homes are in the surrounding area?
yeah, I mean, to the left side, what the concern was, if you look at Jerry, do you see the picture there that shows the lot here? Yeah, you got the cemetery over here. Over here, you have it's a convenience store, liquor store, and there's no curb cut there. Actually, you can only see where those 2 cars are parked. The neighbors are concerned about the traffic up there all the time now. The on his lot there now, the people who own the convenience store, the neighbors testified, they park across the street. When I went up there was a big, huge Hummer parked there. I guess that was the owner of the convenience store or whatever. They're concerned about the traffic running up and down the street. They were concerned about it being too dense is what a lot of neighbors' concerns were. And they were concerned with, let me think what else, I'm trying to think of what else they said. Most of it was density, wasn't it, Joe?
It was density. It's a relatively small lot. I mean, it's consistent with this area, but there aren't two houses on the lots in much of this area.
Yeah, and they were trying to do like an L shape, I think.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the complaints from the neighborhood was that it wouldn't fit into the character of the neighborhood when they tried to come in with a two-family. In my opinion, I don't think it's consistent to add another dwelling to a lot this size in this neighborhood, and I would not be in favor of the special permit.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of what else some of the neighbors spoke about, because we had, I'd say, I don't know, a couple dozen people spoke in opposition, remember?
Yeah.
Rich, remember?
Yeah, there were quite a few.
There was quite a few
people
over
there.
here who spoke, and
I like-
some of them echoed the same concerns, but I think the density of it, a lot of it was a traffic concern. The curb cuts across the street from the variety store. Some of them talked about cars parking in the neighborhood, speeding up and down the streets. I'm trying to remember what else. I think a lot of them echoed some of the same concerns, didn't they, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did, a lot of them. I think, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Sure, absolutely.
that the layout, I question whether this house fits here comfortably. I concur with Attorney Claremont. He's showing on this sketch a proposed 24 by 36-foot structure, and what's conveniently left off this print is the driveway. I think if you superimpose a driveway where it actually is, you can see it on the photograph, that the new structure is going to be partially over that driveway and possibly eliminate some parking in there. I don't think we have enough information
Yeah, I
on
think
this
if you look at
print.
if you look at the aerial, it shows where that truck is now. Also behind the house to the right, I remember when I did the visit up there, there is a, yeah, and it's on the other sketch, there's a little shed up there. See to the, on the.
Yeah, on the left.
Yeah, where it says Corbett Street, you look to the back, I remember there was a shed up back there because, when I went up there, if you look to the house that's facing Gorham Street, I could see tire tracks on the lawn. And I couldn't figure out where they came from, so I believe they looked like they were to sit-down mower or tractor that came from that shed. And I could see they went to the side of that house and around the back. Because I know, if you look at it that way, that's pretty close to Gorham Street where they have the frontage now. And basically, under our rules and regulations, it's basically, it's a corner lot. So what they basically need is frontage on both lots, and then they have to have the side yard, which I think he meets under the criteria anyways. And then, if you follow up on it, there's one other thing we have in our zoning, which it doesn't apply to this, but it did raise an issue, which says when you have lots with multiple buildings, in the case of multiple buildings on a lot in a single ownership, the distance between such buildings shall apply with the requirements of the state building code. Then it goes on and says TMU, USF, and UMF are different, and how the lots in between have to be the same for the lot, the space in between has to be the same for the minimal lot requirement, side yards. So it doesn't apply for this zone, but it does go on to say how other zones, so this comes down to basically the state building code, so that'd be enforceable by the building department and not us. But I remember that we had this insert in here about multiple lots, so I did refer to it and found out that this didn't cover this zoning part, because he falls into the TMU, and then he goes to TMF, and the USF, and the UMF. So basically, that's before us for that recommendation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You know, one of the reasons I was motivated to apply for this position is I wanted to help and make an impact on helping our city grow and develop, but still keeping our neighborhoods livable, keeping them places where people are going to want to live, because if people don't want to live there, then, you know, we've kind of ruined our city. We don't have a lot of information before us today, and frankly, because this came up under ZBA legal notices, you know, normally I probably would have wanted to go out and view the site and so forth, but just from the information that we've been given tonight, I just think this is an example of, you know, trying to trying to slide a house into a lot where it really doesn't belong. You know, I would agree with some of the comments that were made earlier that this really isn't appropriate. And I think that if what's before us is making a recommendation to the ZBA, then I would be in favor of, you know, recommending denial.
We'll take that in the form of the motion. The motion made. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes yes, so the motion carries 5-0 to recommend denial to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Moving along in our agenda, we have any further comments from planning board members? Any planning board members have any updates or any comments? Or any questions or concerns? Hearing none, I'll entertain a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman,
Oh,
just
go
one
ahead.
comment. They told me these meetings would be long. This is actually quite nice.
Well, for your first meeting, no heavy lifting, but wait till next time.
Thanks.
Well, it's always nice to start on a light note, but obviously I know that being in city government, that you anticipate what's down the road and you know better. I know you've sat in these chambers before. Jerry's been here plenty of nights before, when he's waited 3 hours to listen to other projects ahead of him. So I know that you gentlemen know what you're getting yourself into. So, and again, on behalf of all the board members, we do welcome you and thank you very much for your first meeting. Good night, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Good night, everybody. Thank you. I think Steve Peters bought that property like within the last year, too.